Ford's car business in Europe, right? It is a separate company to Ford Global or Ford in the United States, and it has more than $10 billion in debt. Unfortunately, their sales are collapsing every single year, shrinking every single year, I should say. And as a result, they've literally fired half of their workforce. They had 20,000 people, they now have 10,000. They've shut down one of their factories and their electric car plant, which is only 2 years old. Very good, very high probability, unfortunately, that will be closed as well. As a result, Ford's employees in Germany, they are protesting. They are saying they've all agreed, 90% of them have agreed that they are going to launch industrial action. What does this mean? Most likely, the end result for this is bankruptcy. I'll explain why that is. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. It's great to have you with us. As many of you now know, thanks to numerous stories, videos that I've done on the issue, it's very expensive to manufacture cars in Germany. It's literally 3 times more expensive in terms of labor costs to make cars in Germany than it is in the United States, and 6 times more expensive than it costs to make a car in China. According to industry experts, Ford faces a bleak future in Europe. Spiegel Business says the situation is bad and the outlook is even worse. Ford is too small in the passenger car sector to be able to operate profitably in Europe. That's the case now, and that will not change anytime in the future. So what does this mean? Well, here's the thing. Ford has been losing market share in Germany, as has General Motors, and also in Europe for a very long time. Ford keeps shrinking. It's now so small in Europe that continuing operations in its current configuration makes 0 sense. The automaker has its European headquarters and 2 plants in Cologne, where a total of 11,500 people are employed. In 2018, the number was 20,000. However, Ford plan on cutting staff by an extra 2,500, meaning their workforce will be nearly 60% lower than what it was in 2018. According to government figures, only 3.5% of newly registered cars in Germany came from Ford last year, compared to 5% the year previous. The share is significantly higher, though, for commercial vehicles. But here's the thing. Commercial vehicles for Ford are not made in Germany. And you might say that that makes sense. Employees and workers have already felt the gravity of the situation. Last year, Ford announced that it would cut 4,000 jobs at its European plants by the end of 2027, including 2,900 in Germany. This primarily affects Ford's site in Cologne, which is their electric car factory. It doesn't just make electric cars, but that's primarily what it's there for. The unions, they've decided they're not going along with it. According to the largest union in Europe and I believe the second largest car union in the world, 93.5% of Ford members voted in favor of industrial action in a ballot on Thursday. A decision will now be made at short notice on the scope and areas of strike action. The union is demanding financial security for all employees at the Cologne site. Basically, the union is saying you can't fire anyone. We want a guarantee of financial security. I mean, this is a business. Like, I don't know how Ford's expected to be able to do that. And even in the event of potential insolvency, the union says Ford must continue to pay wages for all of its staff and guarantee that they will have jobs. I don't know how Ford's going to pull that off. This includes, among other things, the amount of severance pay for employees who must leave the company. So, from one expert's perspective, the worst case scenario, bankruptcy, doesn't have to come to the worst. 2 solutions, they say, the union says, are conceivable. Ford could sell its European car business, I don't know to who, I mean, who's going to buy it? Nissan? Then the problem would be solved, says the union. Car production could remain in Cologne, but the development department and administrative areas would relocate to the buyer's headquarters. The other option would be to establish a joint venture with another car manufacturer, thereby achieving higher production volumes and lower costs. Then perhaps we'll finally become competitive, says Dudenhofer. One possible partner would be Renault. So basically, Ford is losing money in Europe every single quarter. It's literally bleeding money. And the solution, they say, is to build someone else's cars together in the factory or rebadge someone else's cars, Renault's or something, or to sell Ford's business in Europe to someone else. Who would want to buy it? I don't understand this. It's just truly bizarre. Stefan Bratzel, director of the Center of Automotive Management, CAM, in Gladbach, sees a third way out of the current situation. The US parent company would have to invest billions in the development and production of new electric cars and in enhancing its brand image. But the question is Ford in a position to do that, considering the losses they're predicting in the United States this year? Massive losses they're saying that they're going to result this year, probably around $5 billion. So Ford is bleeding money, and they're saying Ford should invest billions of dollars in Europe in a company that they're losing money on constantly, where labor costs are the highest in the world. I mean, I don't really understand the logic behind this. The previously pledged investments of several hundred million euros for the Ford plants in Cologne over a period of 4 years would be far too little, say experts. Ford headquarters in the USA will have to demonstrate a level of determination that is lacked in recent years. Ford is currently manufacturing 2 electric car models in Cologne, but sales are well below expectations. Key components are purchased at a fairly high price from Volkswagen. That makes it an expensive car to build. This means the added value for Ford is not very low, which makes the business less attractive, says Beitzel. Now, he says that Ford invested too late into electric cars. In fact, experts in Germany are saying the reason this has happened is because Ford came to the party too late and just was like, well, we don't know how to make an electric car. We'll just get the Volkswagen. Basically, Ford's EVs in Europe are rebadged Volkswagens. You know, you can see they've got a different body shell, but they're essentially rebadged Volkswagens. Most of the parts in them are from Volkswagen. So you can imagine Volkswagen is not making a profit on their EVs. How the hell is Ford going to do so? It doesn't make any sense because Ford was so late to the party. But as experts are saying, it put them in a position where they can't make their own cars. They can't find the right suppliers that are going to enable them to make these cars affordably. Labor costs in Germany are really expensive. This is an impossible situation. Furthermore, Ford has failed to credibly transform its decades-long low-price image, which it has had as a manufacturer of combustion engine small cars like the Fiesta, into what Ford has attempted, which is a higher-priced image. The list price of the cheapest version of the Ford Explorer is 40,000 euros. I mean, that's $75,000 here in Australia. Other versions are much more expensive. The Ford Capri, which is not a really big car, cheapest price, 42,400 euros. It's too expensive. Why should I buy a Ford when I can get an electric car from Volkswagen for the same money or a little less? And the technology is the same, said one expert. The outlook for Ford in Europe is also poor because competition is only intensifying. Chinese suppliers are entering the market and significantly increasing competitive pressure. All in all, Ford has a huge task ahead of it with its passenger car business, say analysts in Germany. For years, Ford has failed to meet the needs of the European car market. It simply produced the wrong cars. It was similar with General Motors and Opel. In the end, the Americans gave up and sold Opel. This is more difficult though for Ford because the Ford car brand cannot be separated from the Ford commercial vehicle brand. Ford can't just sell it. It's not that simple. And considering this business is so heavily indebted and losing more money every single quarter, the only real end goal here for Ford is to declare bankruptcy in Europe, to essentially rid itself of all these debts and to actually focus on its core business in the United States, where it's obviously very profitable manufacturing pickup trucks and SUVs. Now, guys, I have been saying this would happen now for, I believe, 3 years, that Ford would eventually shut down its European business. And to be fair, there's many videos I've mentioned this on, and clearly that's what's happening here. So Ford's car division in Europe will probably cease to exist, I'd say, within the next 2 to 3 years, potentially even sooner. And of course, Ford will then be very, very reliant on selling cars in other markets, such as Thailand, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments.